140, 150,000.
Wait a minute. Can you say that one more time? Because I think people need to hear that. I know I do.
2 years ago, one of our Mazda techs made 168,000 in a year.
How many auto techs we need in a 10-mile radius to Evanston? It's 550 on an annual basis between auto and diesel.
But it was that moment in which he started to realize he had this passion for using his hands. He had the passion for figuring out how to get creative and fix things. And really, you could start to see him light up.
And we also can't lose sight of the fact that at Evanston, I read somewhere years ago that we had the most master's degrees per capita, which means we're a really elite, overeducated crew of people. And along with that comes that added level of expectation. Well, you throw kids together, that academic path isn't your passion, or isn't even something that you like, and then you're going along to get along, and you're swimming in, to use your words, which is toxic water.
Whoa.
Hey.
Hey,
Can you hear yourself pretty well?
Yes, I can.
All right.
I can hear
Maybe
myself
too well.
too well.
Just talk over the top of the mic, you'll be fine.
Yeah, there we go.
I think we're not going to have any trouble talking.
No, I think talking will be easy.
Well, we do it all the time.
That's true.
You and I started this. The last episode was just you and I, and we're now starting to bring people into this into our booth here. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks for having us.
You bet.
I think that our focus there's Automotive Month at ETHS.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to extend it from the end of January into February, and Richard has offered to donate a car, so we're still trying to see if we can get a car in the middle of H corridor.
Yeah.
So by the time this airs, there may be a car in the middle of the hallway outside of the superintendent's office.
I think we can do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That is so cool.
It is
This
real
so
cool.
And what I love.
All we've got to do is roll it in there, right?
That's exactly right.
How hard could it be?
Well, you got dimensions, you got doors, but I think we figured it all out. What do we have? An engineer over there. We had the building engineer. We had your own private engineer.
Well, let's just start with the fact that a car has never been in H or right, and then we're talking about an automotive industry. So you're an entrepreneur, Richard. You're a risk taker. You're a business owner.
Yeah.
A high school is not used to rolling a car and putting it into
No, we're not. That's why the pitch to the superintendent was like, "Hey, can I put a car here?" And he's like, "You're gonna put a car here? Good luck. If you can get it in, you can have it there." And I was like, "Perfect,
Great.
done."
That's what I wanted to hear.
So what we're and that's part of what we're doing here at the Trade Collective is elevating these opportunities. We know that right now in the automotive sector, there's 80 to 100 kids that have clicked a box on their school links that said they're interested in the automotive sector. Wow. That's a lot. And so, part of what we're trying to think through is, where do we go? Where do we send these kids, whether they're freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior? The ideal goal is that they come out of that high school what we call trade ready.
Right.
It may take 2 or 3 years to kind of fully get a kid, who's a sophomore now, what we call trade ready, so that they're fully got their certifications, and you're going to be really happy receiving these kind of young people. But so we're talking about the automotive industry here
That's
today.
where we are.
Yeah. So let's introduce our guests, if you don't mind. Scott, do you mind introducing yourself? Who are you, and what brings you to the automotive conversation?
Yeah, for sure. So my name's Scott Nelson, and Evanstonian, if you will. I have 3 boys. All 3 went through ETHS or are going through. I have my last one's graduating this year. The reason I'm really excited and passionate about the automotive sector specifically is I have a son, and Jason is his name, and he is now like a technician and a mechanic. And to say the path to get to that was an easy one was not. It was not an easy path for him. It took him a while. And when we start thinking about how do we expose these kids at a younger age to potential opportunities for their future, like how do we begin that conversation earlier? And what could that have meant to Jay if he would have been exposed to it earlier? And like what his opportunities could have been. So that's a lot of what I'm doing here is like really excited about the idea of how we engage kids, how we engage owners of like larger organizations to help bring these kids through and train them and give them an opportunity. And I think that's exactly what I'm all about.
Great. Looking forward to hearing more from you. Richard.
I'm Richard Fisher. I started the Autobahn car dealerships. First ones were here in Evanston. July the 1st, 1992. We were Oldsmobile and Volkswagen back then. And been here ever since. We've been in a few other municipalities in Chicago. My ex-wife and son operate stores in Countryside, Illinois, Volkswagen and Subaru. And we've also been in Highland Park, Chicago, Mount Prospect. I think that's it.
I have a thank you to you. When I saw the building empty, you and I have been friends for quite a while. So when I saw this building empty, I called you and I said, can I just please come in? I have this idea. And you have always been very generous to me. And the idea that you let me sit here in this building to think through how we could begin to communicate with the high school, communicate with Oakton, communicate with, imagine starting to get kids to start thinking about putting a car, dreaming of a different way of approaching how to wake up our community and get people excited about something different. And that might really attract kids to something. And so, it's a block from the high school. It's a perfect building for us. And so thank you for that. I mean, any history on the building you want to?
You're most welcome. The reasoning behind that was basically when you opened my eyes to the idea that, and I read about it actually from following European news 7-8 years ago in some of the European countries, they turned back towards the idea of apprenticeships and not everybody necessarily being shaped the right shape to be forced through the college system or the university system. And obviously I think that we've been at that point in the United States, certainly around here, for a few years now. We're sort of, I think we're behind the curve. And you seemed to discover that or rediscover that ahead of a lot of people. And when you gave me the statistics of kids at ETHS, the number that don't go to college and the number that go to college and don't make it past the first year, and then, what are we doing with the rest of those kids? It's compelling, and that's really the reason that I saw that perhaps we should try and participate.
Well, thank you. And I think that kind of gets me to back to you, Scott. I think to give us, if Jason, I hopefully has given you permission to sort of talk about him, but I think it's an interesting, I think there's a lot of other parents that probably, if you have kids, it's not always a perfect straight road.
Right.
Fair?
Very fair.
3 kids, 3 different pathways, right?
Very different pathways, for sure.
Tell us what happened with Jay and kind of like do the town thing. What happens in this town and what happened with Jason?
For sure, yeah. So as I mentioned, I have 3 kids. My eldest, straight and narrow, went 4-year university, did really well, very successful, and that's kind of how you imagine things to go. Oh, that's how it should be. And that's also what our community talks a lot about. Where are you going to school next year? Where did you apply? And it's all about the 4-year school. And so Jason, on the other hand, kind of just did high school. He just did it. He just had to get through. Yeah. And whether he enjoyed it or not, that was kind of beside the point. He just was trying to complete it as best he could. But his focus, again, was to go to a 4-year school.
Why?
Yeah, why? I know why that is, but I'd like to hear it from your perspective.
Sure. From my perspective, it was his peers. It was his, all of our friends. What are you doing? Just those expectations. Our family. I went to a 4-year university. My wife, Terry, went to a 4-year university. And that was just kind of what you do. And I would say North Shore specifically is very much specific to that. Where are you going to school? And it's not, hey, I'm thinking about going to Oakton. I'm thinking about doing a trade or anything like that. It's more about where are you going? And so naturally he had to have something to fill that blank. So he went down the natural process of applying to multiple schools. He got into lots of different schools. And so he was like really excited. Behind the scenes, Terry and I are going, I'm not sure if this is the right spot for you, right? Like even at home, you didn't really love going to school. And let alone now you're going to go away to school and you're going to try to assimilate to what it's like to not be around your parents, what it's going to be like not to have any constraints, if you will. That little container that we had created for him was going to be disrupted. So anyway, so he got accepted, went down to Florida and had a really rough go. He had a really rough go. And he made it probably 30, 60 days before he actually raised his hand and said, you know, I can't do this. This is not good for me and my mental health. This is not good for me physically. And I don't think I can do this.
That's really courageous for a kid to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
The flames must have been high.
Yeah.
They
right.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was intense. It was intense. It was not like to say it was like, oh, it was a jovial process and all that stuff. It was rough. It was really tough. I think he felt disappointed in himself. I think he felt bad because he was disappointing us or felt that he was. In reality, you know, we weren't entirely sure if he was going to be able to like really make it and finish the 4-year, but that wasn't going to be me to tell him, no, you can't do that. And so we spent money to put him down there, get him to school, get him to all that stuff, and then brought him back. And then created those boundaries and started to create that capsule for him again to be more successful and to really kind of seek what he wanted to do. But then even then, he still struggled to figure out what that next step was going to be. And it wasn't out of the gates automotive. And he went into retail for a while, trying to figure out if that's going to work, went into restaurants and cooking and those kinds of things, and just wasn't really able to find his way until like he started playing with cars in my garage. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? You can't just take apart my car. But it was that moment in which he started to realize he had this passion for using his hands. He had the passion for figuring out how to get creative and fix things. And really you could start to see him light up. And then we started talking about, hey, well, then why don't you start to look at becoming a mechanic? And actually that's where, you know, Mr. Fisher came involved with the Auto Barn and provided Jason with his first opportunity to be a lube tech over at Auto Barn and became really passionate about it. Like I'd never seen this kid so excited. He not only was he doing things that he loved, but he was getting paid to do it. And that was awesome. And so he went from that place to, God, I think I want to go back to school. I don't think I'd ever say this, Dad, but like, I think I want to go back to school and get my degree and like figure out how to become a mechanic. And so he went down the path. And the first place he went to, and whether that was the right call or not, he decided he wanted to go to Lincoln Tech, and which was a decent amount of money. And it was
How much money?
It was about $40,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, $40,000.
That's real.
Yeah, which is real. And he decided to go down that path.
And where is it?
It's Chicago. So it took him about an hour to get there. And he had to go down there 4 times a week. And so in the middle of traffic and all that stuff, which, you know, again, not my cup of tea, but that was something he was willing to do. And I think the truth be told, I don't think that he understood some of the offerings that we had closer to us, like at Oakton, and the great programs that they've got going on there. But I mean, that ultimately kind of catapulted him into learning more about engines and learning more about brakes and learning more about like what it takes to become a mechanic. And he shot off like a rocket.
I'm your neighbor. I know the detail. That was a nice little story you just gave us, but it was more tumultuous. There were some real tough times in all of that discovery.
Oh, for sure.
Right, and more pressure when you've just. And if I'm out of bounds here, say something. But you know when he went down to Florida and then came back, there's embarrassment.
Sure.
Right, and
Yeah.
and then there's this sort of hunt to have to go find something, and I mean again, I'm not going to keep doing a commercial for what we would like to do, but we wish Jason had been able to figure out whether it was going to be culinary, all of that
Yeah.
while he was in, it would just be nice to have kind of almost heard him earlier or given him that space to.
So you said it could have been so much easier and so much more direct if it were not for this incorrect and somewhat toxic assumption that's been forced on us all
Right.
for years and years and years that it's somehow inferior to go into a trade, take on an apprenticeship, learn to do a trade properly. It's been foisted on us that's inferior in some way at a basic level relative to going to 4 years of college. And it isn't. It's a different choice. And for a lot of kids, like Jason, it was a better choice in front. But I think the thing that Pat's trying to do, as far as I've seen, is you got to shine a light on the basic toxicity and incorrectness of that base assumption that it's not as good.
Right.
You
I'm
know what
glad
I'm
you're
saying?
saying that, Richard. I'm really glad to hear that because that has been the message.
Right.
Both explicitly, college for all for years, and implicitly, like at the cocktail party.
Sure.
What's your kid doing? Where are you going? And we also can't lose sight of the fact that at Evanston, I read somewhere years ago that we had the most master's degrees per capita, which means we're a really elite, overeducated crew of people. And along with that comes that added level of expectation. Well, you throw kids together, and maybe that's not your, that academic path isn't your passion, or isn't even something that you like, and you're kind of lost.
Right.
And then you're going along to get along, and you're swimming in, to use your words, which is toxic water.
Yeah, you've been put in the wrong seat on the bus.
Right.
Someone should have helped you find the right seat on the bus, but no one did.
Right, and that's where I come in to make amends. I call this podcast the Make Amends Tour for me, because my whole career was really up until the last well, how long ago did we start this conversation, Pat? Was it 8 years ago? The two of us.
Yeah,
8,
yeah.
Up until about 8 years ago, I was full on college for everybody. And Pat kind of got into my head, supply, demand, asked me all these uncomfortable questions. Richard, you hinted at that earlier, like the number of kids that are left behind, that don't go off to the 4-year or go to the 4-year and don't. The most expensive degree is a degree that's not completed.
Correct. Yep.
Right? I mean, you can attest to
Yes,
that.
I can. Sure
Right?
can.
So I'm taking.
in that club, too.
You're in that club too.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
My son went off to college because he went through the system and went down to SLU, and after a year, he just put his hand up and said, "This isn't for me. I don't want to do this." And today, he's a pretty successful father, business person, and I think you'd agree he's a well-rounded person, and he didn't finish college.
Is he happy?
He's a very happy person. Yeah.
And I would say being happy is huge. And I would say that portion of time from him coming home from school to figuring it out, Jay was not a happy person until he was able to figure that out. And it was a process that he needed to go through for his own journey, because every kid's journey is going to be unique and different, right? Sure. And I think we can't assume that everyone should be going to a 4-year, that everyone should be going to a trade or not doing that. We need to figure those things out, but we also need to provide them with the resources to be able to do those things thoughtfully.
Yeah, that's where the Trade Collective really comes in for me, is like a conduit to help to assist us in providing those things.
Right.
Because we didn't have that before. We had a course selection guide. You had a counselor, love our counseling department. We had a CTE department. But unless you ventured over to the automotives wing,
Correct.
which is off the grid, not on the main thoroughfare, off the grid, you didn't know unless you read through the book and you said, "Oh, there's automotive. What's that?" Fair?
Yeah.
We certainly didn't have a car in the main hall next to our Northwestern office. I mean, let's be honest. What we have in that corridor right now tends to be business and high elite university taking up real estate. So this is a game changer symbolically. But again, to get at breaking that, I think is the kids are certainly a part, right? Expose the kids earlier. have them build relationships.
Yep.
Right. Get kids like your son out there talking to our kids potentially,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
About the opportunity, sharing their story. The other part is the parents, man, and that's a tough nut to crack. So I'd like to hear some ideas, about what you have, and then Richard, like, I know you get folks who are interested and you develop them, right? So I'd also like to follow up on that. So first of all, how do you get parents in this town to be okay with this?
Yeah.
Unless they go through it or they're friends with you.
Right. I would say that it is very difficult. It was difficult for me as an individual to go through that process to understand what my son was going to or not going to be doing. You have these predisposed ideas and thoughts of where your son's going to do and what he's going to be and how he's going to do those things. And to see some of those things change, you kind of have to change yourself. And there's a lot that goes into that process for you reconciling with yourself and kind of the image or the ideas that I had for him. So I think, one, it's all about, like, how do you talk to each other and other kids and recognize the fact that there's going to be different paths and that all of those paths are okay, right? It's not just a singular path. And I think we got to remove the stigma of going to a community college or going to a trade school or whatever it may be. That stigma is real. But until we start to, like, push on that stigma and destigmatize it, we're never going to get to a place in which it's accepted and other parents are going to feel okay about it, especially to your point, saying Evanston has got a lot of people that have master's degrees and things of that nature. That's also how they're predisposed. Mm-hmm. So we're in this moment in which, not just here in Evanston, but nationally, that we're losing kids in trades, and we need more. We need to expose kids to that, because we're also pushing kids that rightfully shouldn't be going to a 4-year school because that's not what their passion is. So how do you get them directed in places that they need to go? But getting back to your question, I think it's a lot about how do you educate parents about what's available. And for me, knowing about the automotive organization or automotive classes at ETHS is kind of like, okay, cool, that's interesting. I kind of always knew that they had it. I also know they have ceramics and they have guitar. Yeah, right. You got like a huge course book. But I didn't really actually understand the depth in which the program provides opportunities to. And I would love to be able to say, hey, if you do this, you get dual credit from Oakton if you did this. Like, those kinds of things would also be super helpful, because then it would create a pathway for me to get my kid to Oakton in a seamless path. Yeah. And so those are just some thoughts that I kind of had.
What do you think, Richard? If we want to crack this nut, we got to get to the parents. And, like, if you could, as a parent yourself, right?
Yeah.
And as a business owner, what would you tell a parent whose kid wants to maybe do this or doesn't even know it's available? I mean, how do you?
I think it starts with challenging people and saying, you know what, maybe the stuff that we've been spoon-fed for a long time isn't really necessarily true, or it's not accurate. And to the point, as we said earlier, it may even be damaging, because not everyone's shaped to do the same thing. And we've been trained to think, well, if they're shaped to do something that's not that, then they must be inferior. And so different isn't a synonym for inferior. Right. Different just means different. So if something's a different shape, I think parents have got to, if you've got someone that's willing to explain it to them over and over again.
He pointed to you, Pat.
Did he just point at me?
When we used to train people in the car business, we'd say that if you're trying to get a salesperson to learn something new, you have to teach it to them 5 times. If you're trying to get a manager to learn something new, then it's 10 times. So if you're trying to get a parent to take on something about their child, and you're trying to break a paradigm that's been pounded into them since they were kids, then it might take someone saying it to them a lot of times in different ways, and explaining and illustrating the concept, and it's going to be a one-by-one type thing. Pat.
Did you say me again?
Yeah.
Why me?
What's your job?
Oh, okay.
I have a question about my job. I'm the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction at the place
Well,
down
it's
the
your
street.
job too. Then.
Right.
But here's the question I have about my job. I got you guys here. What does the high school need to do? Particularly, let's go into the auto industry, right? All of it. What can we do better? What do you want kids coming out of the high school? I sat in here a couple months ago. We had all the autos folks, all the shops in town come in, and they were talking about a certification level that they wanted kids at. And I was like, oh, I had no clue, right? I was like, oh, we're providing the wrong level of certs, whatever. But like brass tacks, I'm responsible for the curriculum at the high school. Autos, all of it, really. I work in collaboration with teachers to develop, these courses. I work with Oakton for dual credit. What do I need to know about your business and about what you want kids coming out of the high school prepared, ready? What do they need to be trade ready for you, Richard?
In terms of the trade, so we're talking specifically about being a technician.
Okay.
If a kid is interested in going in that direction, whether it's construction, being an electrician, metalwork, whatever it may be, if it's the automobile industry and being a technician, I think if they're exposed to all the different things and choices earlier, there's a good chance they're going to identify earlier. So that idea where a kid could go while he's at high school or she's at high school and go 3 times a week or 4 times a week and get credits at a trade school where they're getting high school credits or college credits during that 14 years, 15 years, 16-year-old period, not necessarily waiting
Right.
until the end of high school.
And then making the choice.
And
But
I
now
think
it's saying earlier, back it up.
that's what I think would make things much easier and clearer for everyone. If there was some mechanism where they could do that and where they don't necessarily have to sign up for $42,000 a year
Yeah.
at Lincoln Tech when we're not 100% sure
Right.
yet that they're going to make it, and that's what they're doing. So there must be some way working with someone like Oakton that something like that could be achieved, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick, you like to call it the appetizer and the main course. I mean, could you break that down for everybody?
Sure.
'Cause I love
there's
that
three,
metaphor.
There's three classes at ETHS,
Yep.
right? Let's call those the appetizers. So Jason would have tested himself and said, "Oh man, I did the lube. I changed oil on a car today. I loved it. Whatever lit him up. Let's just say he got into one of those 3 classes, and he gets to know." The teacher, Tom, Mr. Tom, and what's Tom's last name?
Springelmeyer.
Springelmeyer. Thank you. That's
Tommy
why it wasn't just
Springelmeyer.
jumping to my brain. But then he'd start a relationship with Tom, with this teacher, and start driving down. I'm sure teachers have kids that are annoying, because they love it so much, and Tom is all about that. I would bet. But then the next question is, where do we take them? Right? Where do we take them? So the appetizer happens at ETHS, and then the meal, you start tasting a real meal over at Oakton. There's paper at the end of that called a certification, so that you could, the same way we're training young people to, when my daughter went to college, I don't know how many AP classes she took. I don't know. It seemed like a lot, like maybe 8 to 10. I don't know how many it was to get to the school that she went to. But what if we took that same energy for a Jason when he was a sophomore or a junior? And let's just say he liked it.
Yep.
And I think the thing is that we as a high school, we as a community have to be okay with that. Yep. And, we looked at that model up in Lake County. Lake County's got a beautiful kids from, 21 different schools I think they have a partnership with. They all leave their school for 2 hours a day. I think it's like 2,500 kids go to this, and they get to leave Lake Forest High School, where it's not okay to say, I want to be a welder, and they get to go weld with other people from other schools and test it, and whether or not they like it, whether they're good at it, right? There's a part about getting away from the peer pressure of people seeing your nails dirty or whatever, or I don't care what it is, but it's probably helpful to get away from it a little bit to go test it. And
so there's a functional blueprint already out there that we could copy.
yeah.
I mean, the idea of actually doing something with your hands, like not necessarily in a classroom setting, I think is really, really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Just that idea, like, so the community garage is doing some really, really cool things within Evanston and like exposing kids to how do you build a race car.
Tell us your experience with Community Garage.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, again, Jason, the center point of a lot of things for me in general. I brought him over to the community garage and introduced him to John, and he went around the corner and saw this beautiful race car up on rollers and just lit up again. And now he's getting involved every week. He's coming in. He's going to go with them on a field trip that they're going to be doing
To Daytona.
to Daytona.
Right.
Yeah. To Daytona. He's going to get passes to get in, and he's going to get his hands dirty. He's like, now he's got this whole nother vision about what he wants to get involved with. And if I think about getting involved in racing versus other extracurriculars that has been involved with, this is a very healthy way in which he can spend his time. And I think it's really, really great to be able to give these kids these opportunities. But how is he doing that? He has to seek it out. He's got to like get his hands dirty. He's got to find what's possible. And without being exposed to those things, the number of times he thanked me, which I don't know why he did, because I introduced him, was tons. And as a parent, that's huge, right?
Yeah, that feels great.
It feels amazing.
Yeah.
But like really, it's not me. It's just me just trying to provide whatever access I can. And it's all about connections and networks and things like that.
And finding that right thing.
Yes, exactly. And, I think how do we get, like you asked about what can the school do to help kids be exposed to these types of things? I think it's one thing to have classes. I think it's another thing to have other fun activities. And ETHS does a good job of having clubs and things of that nature. But how do you expose kids to these clubs and encourage them to come, that it's like some reason some kids don't go to clubs is because their friends aren't doing it.
Right.
And so how do you break those norms down, right? How do you break those things apart to where you go out and try something yourself? Like find something you're passionate about. Find something that you're excited about.
You start putting it front and center.
Yep.
Literally.
The
experience. And then you make the choice.
Yeah.
All right, let's educate the community about how many auto techs we need in a 10-mile radius to Evanston. Do you know the number? Have you heard the number?
I have heard the number. But
It's 550 on an annual basis between auto and diesel. That's how many techs are needed on an annual basis due to retirement, due to job moves around, whatever. There's union, there's non-union. You're a union shop. Why are you a union shop, and what are the benefits of being a union tech?
Obviously, for the technician, the union provides a strong pension plan, very strong medical coverage, and they know that they're paid very well.
What does that mean?
It means you can make a very good living. If you're competent and you're willing to work reasonably hard, and I'm not talking about the old paradigm of 70-hour work weeks. I mean, a normal 38.5-hour work week.
Can we just demystify the money? What is one of your top auto techs probably pulling home a year?
140, 150,000.
Wait a minute. Can you say that one more time? Because I think people need to hear that. I know I do. Say it one more time.
A few years ago, one of our Mazda techs made 168,000 in a year.
that does not include benefits.
No.
Right.
No, that's what he made on his paycheck.
That's what he meant. And Jason came home after being part of the union, and he told me how much he was having to put in for his insurance. And I was blown away. I said, that's not possible. That's not possible that could be right. And it was $10. $10 a month that he was paying for his insurance.
Yeah,
That's
the rest
full
of it's
coverage.
put in by the employer.
Correct.
But
Thank you.
I happen to believe in being a union
Why?
dealer. My dad was a tradesman, and I I think it was probably partly how I was brought up, and the knock on being a car dealer who's a union shop is that your expenses are higher. So a lot of the big operators and the big chain operators, they'll do whatever they've got to do to not be a union shop. They'll do what they've got to do to break the union and so on and so forth. Well, I don't see the union as a real evil. I think it's something. The biggest problem with that the union has right now is the age of their members. I mean, it's an
aging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you tell Union 701 around here that we're going to get you a bunch of new young members, they might turn handsprings. They'll be. That's what they need.
That's the reality on the ground.
That's the reality. Yeah.
Thank you. You sell cars at Mazda here in Evanston, and Volvo in Oak Park. So
Yes, sir.
If you've got a young person who's needing a car, go buy it from Richard at Auto Barn. Your daughter Vivian, tell us about Vivian real quick.
Vivian was living in Cincinnati, college grad. She's very bright. She's that combination. Kind of unusual. She's a combination of book bright and what would you say, people bright.
Yeah.
Sure.
She's sort of that one that went down the middle, kind of.
Yep.
My eldest daughter is completely an academic. She's, very, very smart, but that's the world that she's made for. And then my son is more a people person. So about 3 years ago, my wife and I were out of town, and I had sold off some of the dealerships and was getting smaller and was sort of depressed about the whole thing, that I was just going to sell it and retire and not really do anything. And my wife said to me, do you think, why wouldn't you call Vivian and tell Vivian about what a great business this could be? And anyway, long story short, right, sitting there on Ventura Boulevard in Los Angeles, I called Vivian. We talked for an hour. And Brady, her husband, and Vivian are taking over the business right now. They're in the process of doing that. They've been with me 3 years now. And it's given me a new lease on life in terms of the business. I enjoy going and sort of helping them, and, I do what I'm told, largely.
You podcast on the side.
Yeah. But yeah, she's learned a tremendous amount in 3 years. Brady is this process guy who is wonderful. He had already been in the car business a little bit prior. So anyway, it's a good story, and I'm very lucky.
Vivian, Jason worked directly with Vivian quite a bit, and she is the real deal. And so she's doing great things there.
Thank you.
Scott, anything that you want to close out with? Anything that you kind of, that you're thinking about?
So I think some of the things that I think about is, I'm really excited about the opportunities that Evanston's doing, ETHS is doing to help expose kids to things earlier. And I think in partnership with the Trade Collective, I think that's going to be really, really exciting. If we can impact just a few kids, we're winning, right? And a few kids that can bypass the challenges that my son had to go through, we're winning.
Yeah.
And I think that if we can do that patiently and consistently, and I think consistency is going to be key, is how do you consistently work with these kids to give them the opportunities that they rightfully own, that they rightfully deserve, and really go about destigmatizing this idea that a 2-year or a trade school or a trade is not a good thing, when in reality, it's a beautiful thing. It's a much needed thing. And you can get paid well to do so, in whether that's automotive to electrical to whatever it may be. You can make a great life for yourself. And I think that's something that I really want to continue to see our community embrace, in a very different way.
Anything, Richard, that you want to close on?
Yeah, last thing, you're asking me about the union. The one thing I'll say about the union relative to just a trade school or just a whatever is the union actually offers a young person an actual apprenticeship. I'm a fierce believer in apprenticeships. I think that's as important a word as college degree. So I was struggling when you asked me why I believe in the union, but that's one of the big reasons.
Well, I mean, this is just the beginning for us.
Yeah,
And I mean, this is why I think just having this studio, to be able to hear this, to hear a number like 160,000, to hear Jason's story, some other family's going to hear that story and be living it right now, and wishing that kid was grabbing something with everything at a time in a high school age where it would be okay to like try something. And the longer you go, the harder it is to once you graduate from high school. I'm watching it with the 18 plus category. It's just every moment is now real. And I'm not saying during high school it's not real, but it is a time where you can test, and it is a time where you can play a little bit. I know you're on an apology tour. I think we got to stop saying that. It's our school. You're responding to what you think our community is asking for. So I think you're doing a fine job. We just need to move and start to pivot. And
that's part of the reason I'm here, is to get these stories, to get these connections, and to make a difference and to change. So I appreciate all of that.
Yeah,
I appreciate all of that.
You guys, this is a little bit of a weird thing, but this is the sauce studio. We're in the Hecky sauce studio, and we'd like to give you some Hecky sauce.
Have some sauce.
One of them is hot and one of them's regular. So you guys are going to have to.
There we go.
There we go.
There it is.
My wife won't be doing anything with the non-hot stuff.
Well, Hecky was a good friend of mine and very important in our community, particularly around workforce. He worked hard on this, and so we want to give our guests.
I knew him well. It's a good man.
Yeah, very good man.
Thank you.
Thanks for being with us.
Thank you
All right,
very
thanks
much.
for this conversation.
Thanks a lot. It's great.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Cheers.